Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for, actually with a little bit of college hoops. I'll be blunt. I thought once we got through like that late July Russia recruiting stuff, I figured we were pretty much done talking all things college hoops until at least closer to the season, maybe in mid to late October. By the way, we got some big things coming for the Aaron Torres pod, the College Hoops Daily pod for this college basketball season. Make sure you stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming there. But at the same time, like I said, thought we were done talking college hoops, thought we could fully focus on college football for the next month or so, at least until Labor Day night into Monday, where a very, very interesting story broke about a very, very interesting player in a very, very interesting situation. It involves the player Zvonimir Ivisic, or Big Z as the kids call him. If you're a listener of the show, you may be familiar, but if you're not, let me kind of give a little bit of a backstory. He was the kid, 7'2", from Croatia, went through the NBA draft process. And when the NBA draft process was done, it was kind of just, whatever he's going to do, whatever it is that you do when you play professionally in Europe, withdrew from the draft. And the thought was, of course, at the time that he was going back to Europe. Then in like mid to late July, you start to hear whispers that not only is he considering coming to play college basketball in the U.S., but that Kentucky is a favorite. And then seemingly overnight, out of nowhere, he was just a Kentucky Wildcat. Went from completely off everybody's radar to, oh, he may play college basketball too. He was a Kentucky Wildcat within like a week. And so we talked about it when he committed. And it was funny because I remember at the time, a couple of you asked me, do you think there's going to be any eligibility concerns? And what I said at the time, I said, I don't think Kentucky does all the work that it takes to get this kid, to recruit him, to go overseas, to woo him, to pitch him, to get NIL in place, whatever it may be, if they're not 100% positive that he's going to be cleared by the NCAA and eligible to play. Well, fast forward to Labor Day night, my old buddy Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, put out a very interesting report, and apparently I was half right in that analysis when he committed to Kentucky. That is because while Big Z's Zvonimir Ivisic has long since been cleared by the NCAA, the University of Kentucky's school admissions has not yet admitted him here, and the semester is already underway. And so I am far from an expert on the admissions process at the University of Kentucky, but essentially today, I'm recording here late on Tuesday night, is kind of the last day that they can admit him into school so that he can enroll in the fall. And basically, if they don't admit him here very soon, he will not be eligible to play this semester at Kentucky, and he could very well decommit and end up at another college this year. Already reports that schools are reaching out. And so I want to talk about this, to be clear, late Monday night as I record. Stuff is moving. Stuff is happening. And I just want that to be out there. By the time you listen to this, he may have already been admitted to Kentucky. By the time you listen to this, he may have been decommitted from Kentucky and looking for a new option. But the bottom line remains, this is one of the most surreal, weird, bizarre recruiting stories that I can ever remember. Now, a lot of you probably sitting there wondering, if you're not a UK fan, why has he not been admitted? What is the issue? It must be something. Well, apparently, according to Matt and multiple other reports, essentially the school has not admitted him because he has not passed an English language exam. Now, on the surface, that seems as though that would be a big deal, but there's a couple little caveats with that. One, the University of Kentucky's own admissions office, and it's on the website. Justin Rowland, who covers football for UK, excellent guy, excellent reporter, good guy, I know him a little bit, kind of found this list of all these countries that if you're applying to Kentucky from XYZ, whatever country, you don't even have to pass an English language test. Here's the crazy part, though. He did pass an English language test. It was just not the one that Kentucky requires. So he passed a separate English language test. It's worth noting that when he went through the NBA draft process, he was in the United States. He was doing interviews you can find online in English. So it's not as though he can't speak English at all. And on top of that, he passed one English test, then went to take the other one, didn't pass it. But again, he didn't really have time. He was rushed. He didn't have time to prepare, whatever. And so that is the holdup right now with Kentucky. And let me just say, man, like shame on Kentucky for this. And I think, in my opinion, it's for a couple different reasons. One, I'm not just let anybody in guy. I'm not, if a guy is incapable of doing the work, I'm not trying to be offensive or rude or mean or whatever. If a guy or girl literally can't do the work because they don't speak the language, then yeah, that's a conversation to be had. This is not that case, though. As I said, conversational English, not great, but tell you what, he speaks English as a second, third language better than I do any second language. By the way, I saw something, I think it was Jack Pilgrim, that said he speaks 4 languages pretty fluently. Probably a pretty sharp kid, okay? But one, he speaks English. So it's not as though like if he comes to campus, he will be incapable of doing the work. That is not the case at all. On top of that, again, he has already passed an English exam. And I think it's worth noting, the NCAA has already cleared him to play. So the NCAA has said he meets all our requirements, whether it's test scores, whether it's transcript, whether it's whatever, we're good here. We're hands off here. And it's Kentucky that's holding him back over this test, even though he already passed another test, and it's obviously not something that's going to hold him back. And so it's a frustrating deal. And I feel for a lot of different people here. One, I feel for the kid. My understanding is, he's just kind of in complete limbo as I record this. And again, it's always subject to change. Essentially, he's in Croatia right now. He cannot leave Croatia because he can't come to the United States without a student visa. Can't get a student visa without being accepted to the university. And so it's like the kid wants to come. The kid wants to play college basketball, and the school won't let him. I would say this too, by the way, and I know I'm going in a lot of different directions, but stuff's kind of coming in my head as I'm recording here. I do find it kind of rich that of all schools, it's the University of Kentucky that is not admitting him. And by the way, Kentucky fans, I apologize. This isn't a knock on your university, your school, whatever. But this is a school that, let's be blunt, Kentucky is the one and done school, meaning that they, for the past decade and change, have admitted literally dozens of kids to the university that everybody knows are only going to be there for 1 year. Now, to be fair, a lot of them come back after they go to the NBA or go pro and their careers finish. I know Tyler Eulis is on the UK staff right now taking classes towards his degree. John Wall has taken classes towards his degree. So it's not as though to say that none of them ever come back and finish up the degree. But Kentucky for a decade has been admitting dozens of kids, probably 4, 5, 6 a year, that they know have no intention of staying for 4 full years. But this kid who speaks English isn't being allowed. That feels absurd to me, because ultimately, isn't that what higher education is about? Isn't higher education about affording educational opportunities to people of all different walks of life, ages, ethnicities, races, rich, poor, whatever? Again, I know I'm repeating myself. It's not as though he can't do the work. He can do the work. He's capable. He can speak the language. He's going to do it. Said I feel bad for the kid. Also do feel a little bit bad for John Calipari. This is not a John Calipari thing. And we've talked about admissions stuff on this show before, most recently with Caleb Love. And I talked about it at the time with Caleb Love when he was denied admission at Michigan. And what I said was, listen, every coaching staff generally has people in admissions that they can go to with questions before they get too far down the road in a recruitment. And I've used the example, some schools very particular about their graduate programs. I know for a fact, I'll just say it, I don't know if I should or not. UCLA is very particular about letting in grad transfers at UCLA. It's because UCLA has one of the most applied to grad schools in the world. And they don't want a basketball player that's only going to be there for 6 months to take a spot in a program that, let's say, 5,000 people are applying for 25 spots, right? That's UCLA. Other schools are different. They're lenient with grad programs. Some schools, I mentioned back with the Caleb Love thing, I know of another school, they don't want transfers if you have already completed your sophomore year of undergrad. Essentially, they don't want you coming to their school for a year or 18 months and getting a degree without going through the process. So I could go on and on, but my point is, I don't blame John Calipari here, because I am sure that he made sure that all his boxes were checked before he even started recruiting this kid. You don't send coaches overseas multiple times. You don't do what you need to do. I'm sure this kid has an agent. I'm sure there's NIL involved. I'm sure. And again, by the way, whether there is or isn't, student visas, this, that, there's a lot of things that you have to go through. And so to use a football term, since it is now football season, on the 1-inch line, ready to punch this thing in and start your practices, it is so frustrating. So again, we'll update this story if there are changes. I'm recording here at about 7:00 Eastern time here on Tuesday night. By the time you listen to this, something may have changed, but this is disappointing. And it's really disappointing from the UK admissions office, because as I said, higher education, there's not supposed to be, whatever. It's supposed to be available if you're capable to rich, poor, black, white, foreign, US, whatever. And they're clearly letting this kid down. And on a basketball level, on a sports level, they're letting the school's basketball program down as well.